Summary of Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Two men, Vladimir and Estragon, meet near a tree. They converse on various topics and reveal that they are waiting there for a man named Godot. While they wait, two other men enter. Postso is on his way to the market to sell his slave, Lucky. He pauses for a while to converse with Vladimir and Estragon. Lucky entertains them by dancing and thinking, and Postso and Lucky leave. After Postso and Lucky leave, a boy enters and tells Vladimir that he is a messenger from Godot. He tells Vladimir that Godot will not be coming tonight, but that he will surely come tomorrow. Vladimir asks him some questions about Godot and the boy departs. After his departure, Vladimir and Estragon decide to leave, but they do not move as the curtain falls. The next night, Vladimir and Estragon again meet near the tree to wait for Godot. Lucky and Postso enter again, but this time Postso is blind and Lucky is dumb. Postso does not remember meeting the two men the night before. They leave and Vladimir and Estragon continue to wait. Shortly after, the boy enters and once again tells Vladimir that Godot will not be coming. He insists that he did not speak to Vladimir yesterday. After he leaves, Estragon and Vladimir decide to leave, but again they do not move as the curtain falls, ending the play. Act 1. Estragon is trying to take off his boot when Vladimir enters. The two men greet each other. Vladimir examines his hat while Estragon struggles with his boot. They discuss the versions of the story of the two thieves in the Gospels, and Vladimir wonders why one version of the story is considered more accurate than the others. Estragon wants to leave, but Vladimir tells him that they cannot because they are waiting for Godot, who they are supposed to meet by the tree. They wonder if they are waiting in the correct spot, or if it is even the correct day. Estragon falls asleep, but Vladimir wakes him because he feels lonely. Estragon starts to tell Vladimir about the dream he was having, but Vladimir does not want to hear his private nightmares. Estragon wonders if it would be better for them to part, but Vladimir insists that Estragon would not go far. They argue and Vladimir storms off the stage, but Estragon convinces him to come back and they make up. They discuss what to do next while they wait, and Estragon suggests hanging themselves from the tree. However, after a discussion of the logistics, they decide to wait and see what Godot says. Estragon is hungry, and Vladimir gives him a carrot. They discuss whether they are tied to Godot when they hear a terrible cry nearby and huddle together to await what is coming. Postso enters, driving Lucky ahead of him by a rope around his neck. Vladimir and Estragon wonder if Postso is Godot, but he tells them that he is Postso and asks if they have heard of him. They tell him that they have not. Postso commands Lucky to put down his stool, and sits down and begins to eat some chicken. While he eats, Vladimir and Estragon circle around Lucky, inspecting him. They notice a sore on his neck and begin to ask him a question, but Postso tells them to leave him alone. Estragon asks Postso if he can have the bones from his chicken, and Postso tells him that Lucky gets priority over them. Estragon asks Lucky if he wants the bones, but he does not reply, and Postso tells Estragon that he can have the bones. He comments that he has never known Lucky to refuse a bone and hopes that he is not sick. Vladimir suddenly explodes with anger at Postso's treatment of Lucky, but then seems embarrassed at his outburst. Postso decides to go, but then decides to stay and smoke another pipe. Vladimir wants to leave, but Postso reminds him of his appointment with Godot. Estragon begins to wonder aloud why Lucky does not put down his bags. Postso begins to answer the question, after much preparation involving his vaporizer spray, but gives a convoluted and contradictory response. Vladimir asks Postso if he wants to get rid of Lucky. Postso responds that he does and is taking him to the fair to sell him. Lucky begins to cry, and Postso hands Estragon a handkerchief to wipe away his tears. Estragon approaches Lucky, but Lucky kicks him in the shins. Postso tells Vladimir and Estragon that he has learned a lot from Lucky, and that Lucky has been serving him for nearly 60 years. Vladimir becomes angry that Postso is going to get rid of Lucky after so much time, and Postso gets upset. Vladimir then gets angry at Lucky for mistreating Postso. Postso calms down, but he realizes that he has lost his pipe and begins to get upset again. While Estragon laughs at Postso, Vladimir exits, apparently to go to the bathroom. He returns, in a bad mood, but soon calms down. Postso sits down again and begins to explain the twilight. When he finishes, he asks them to evaluate his performance and then offers to have Lucky perform for them. Estragon wants to see Lucky dance, while Vladimir wants to hear him think, so Postso commands him to dance and then think. Lucky dances, and Estragon is not very impressed. Postso tells them that he used to dance much better. Vladimir asks him summary of Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Two men, Vladimir and Estragon, meet near a tree. They converse on various topics and reveal that they are waiting there for a man named Godot. While they wait, two other men enter. Postso is on his way to the market to sell his slave, Lucky. He pauses for a while to converse with Vladimir and Estragon. Lucky entertains them by dancing and thinking, and Postso and Lucky leave. After Postso and Lucky leave, a boy enters and tells Vladimir that he is a messenger from Godot. He tells Vladimir that Godot will not be coming tonight, but that he will surely come tomorrow. Vladimir asks him some questions about Godot and the boy departs. After his departure, Vladimir and Estragon decide to leave, but they do not move as the curtain falls. The next night, Vladimir and Estragon again meet near the tree to wait for Godot. Lucky and Postso enter again, but this time Postso is blind and Lucky is dumb. Postso does not remember meeting the two men the night before. They leave and Vladimir and Estragon continue to wait. Shortly after, the boy enters and once again tells Vladimir that Godot will not be coming. He insists that he did not speak to Vladimir yesterday. After he leaves, Estragon and Vladimir decide to leave, but again they do not move as the curtain falls, ending the play. Act 1. Estragon is trying to take off his boot when Vladimir enters. The two men greet each other. Vladimir examines his hat while Estragon struggles with his boot. They discuss the versions of the story of the two thieves in the Gospels, and Vladimir wonders why one version of the story is considered more accurate than the others. Estragon wants to leave, but Vladimir tells him that they cannot because they are waiting for Godot, who they are supposed to meet by the tree. They wonder if they are waiting in the correct spot, or if it is even the correct day. Estragon falls asleep, but Vladimir wakes him because he feels lonely. Estragon starts to tell Vladimir about the dream he was having, but Vladimir does not want to hear his private nightmares. Estragon wonders if it would be better for them to part, but Vladimir insists that Estragon would not go far. They argue and Vladimir storms off the stage, but Estragon convinces him to come back and they make up. They discuss what to do next while they wait, and Estragon suggests hanging themselves from the tree. However, after a discussion of the logistics, they decide to wait and see what Godot says. Estragon is hungry, and Vladimir gives him a carrot. They discuss whether they are tied to Godot when they hear a terrible cry nearby and huddle together to await what is coming. Postso enters, driving Lucky ahead of him by a rope around his neck. Vladimir and Estragon wonder if Postso is Godot, but he tells them that he is Postso and asks if they have heard of him. They tell him that they have not. Postso commands Lucky to put down his stool, and sits down and begins to eat some chicken. While he eats, Vladimir and Estragon circle around Lucky, inspecting him. They notice a sore on his neck and begin to ask him a question, but Postso tells them to leave him alone. Estragon asks Postso if he can have the bones from his chicken, and Postso tells him that Lucky gets priority over them. Estragon asks Lucky if he wants the bones, but he does not reply, and Postso tells Estragon that he can have the bones. He comments that he has never known Lucky to refuse a bone and hopes that he is not sick. Vladimir suddenly explodes with anger at Postso's treatment of Lucky, but then seems embarrassed at his outburst. Postso decides to go, but then decides to stay and smoke another pipe. Vladimir wants to leave, but Postso reminds him of his appointment with Godot. Estragon begins to wonder aloud why Lucky does not put down his bags. Postso begins to answer the question, after much preparation involving his vaporizer spray, but gives a convoluted and contradictory response. Vladimir asks Postso if he wants to get rid of Lucky. Postso responds that he does and is taking him to the fair to sell him. Lucky begins to cry, and Postso hands Estragon a handkerchief to wipe away his tears. Estragon approaches Lucky, but Lucky kicks him in the shins. Postso tells Vladimir and Estragon that he has learned a lot from Lucky, and that Lucky has been serving him for nearly 60 years. Vladimir becomes angry that Postso is going to get rid of Lucky after so much time, and Postso gets upset. Vladimir then gets angry at Lucky for mistreating Postso. Postso calms down, but he realizes that he has lost his pipe and begins to get upset again. While Estragon laughs at Postso, Vladimir exits, apparently to go to the bathroom. He returns, in a bad mood, but soon calms down. Postso sits down again and begins to explain the Twilight. When he finishes, he asks them to evaluate his performance and then offers to have Lucky perform for them. Estragon wants to see Lucky dance, while Vladimir wants to hear him think, so Postso commands him to dance and then think. Lucky dances, and Estragon is not very impressed. Postso tells them that he used to dance much better. Vladimir asks him to tell Lucky to think, but Postso says that he cannot think without his hat. Vladimir puts Lucky's hat on his head and he begins to think aloud, spouting a long stream of words and phrases that amount to gibberish. As he goes on, the other three suffer more and finally throw themselves on him and seize his hat to make him stop. Postso tramples on the hat, and the men help Lucky up and give him all the bags. Postso is about to leave, but finds that he cannot. He decides that he needs a running start, so he starts from the opposite end of the stage and drives Lucky across as they exchange goodbyes. After Postso and Lucky depart, Vladimir once again tells Estragon that they cannot leave because they are waiting for Godot. They argue about whether Postso and Lucky have changed, and Estragon suddenly complains of pain in his other foot. A boy enters timidly, saying that he has a message from Mr. Godot. Estragon bullies the boy, who reveals that he has been waiting a while but was afraid of Postso and Lucky. When Estragon shakes the boy, badgering him to tell the truth, Vladimir yells at him and sits down and begins to take off his boots. Meanwhile, Vladimir talks to the boy. He asks him if he is the one who came yesterday, but the boy tells him that he is not. The boy tells Vladimir that Mr. Godot will not come this evening, but that he will surely come tomorrow. Vladimir then asks the boy if he works for Mr. Godot, and the boy tells him that he minds the goats. The boy says that Mr. Godot does not beat him, but that he beats his brother who minds the sheep. Vladimir asks the boy if he is unhappy, but the boy does not know. He tells the boy that he can go, and that he is to tell Mr. Godot that he saw them. The boy runs off the stage and, as he goes, it suddenly becomes night. Estragon gets up and puts his boots down at the edge of the stage. Vladimir tells him that the boy assured him that Godot will come tomorrow. He tries to drag Estragon off stage to shelter, but Estragon will not go. Estragon wonders if they should part, but they decide to go together. As the curtain falls, they remain still. Act 2. Act 2 takes place the next evening, at the same time and place. The tree now has 4 or 5 leaves on it. Estragon's boots and Lucky's hat remain on stage when Vladimir enters, looks around, and begins to sing. Estragon enters and suggests that Vladimir seemed happier without him. He says that he does not know why he keeps returning to Vladimir, since he too is happier alone, but Vladimir insists that it's because Estragon does not know how to defend himself. Vladimir suggests that things have changed since yesterday, but Estragon does not remember yesterday. Vladimir reminds him about Postso and Lucky, and they begin to argue about whether Estragon has ever been in the Macon country. Estragon once again says that it would be better if they parted, but Vladimir reminds him that he always comes crawling back. They decide to converse calmly but soon run out of things to say, and Vladimir grows uncomfortable with the silence. Vladimir looks at the tree and notices that it is now covered with leaves, although yesterday it was bare. Estragon says that it must be spring, but also insists that they were not here yesterday. Vladimir reminds him of the bones that Postso gave him and the kick that Lucky gave him and shows him the wound on his leg. He asks Estragon where his boots are and, when Estragon replies that he must have thrown them away, points out the boots on the stage triumphantly. Estragon, however, examines the boots and says that they are not his. Vladimir reasons that someone must have come by and exchanged his boots for Estragon's. Vladimir gives Estragon a black radish, but since he only likes the pink ones, he gives it back. Estragon says he will go and get a carrot, but he does not move. Vladimir suggests trying the boots on Estragon, and they fit, but Estragon does not want them laced. Estragon sits down on the mound and tries to sleep. Vladimir sings him a lullaby, and he falls asleep, but soon wakes up from a nightmare. Vladimir is pleased to find Lucky's hat on the ground because he believes it confirms that they are in the correct place. He puts on Lucky's hat and hands his to Estragon, who takes off his hat and hands it to Vladimir. This switch occurs several times until once again Vladimir wears Lucky's hat, and Estragon wears his own hat. Vladimir decides that he will keep Lucky's hat, since his bothered him. They begin to play Postso and Lucky's roles, with Vladimir imitating Lucky and telling Estragon what to do to imitate Postso. Estragon leaves, but quickly returns because he hears someone coming. Vladimir is sure that Godot is coming, and Estragon hides behind the tree. He realizes that he is not hidden and comes out, and the two men begin a watch with one stationed on each side of the stage. When they both begin to speak at once, they get angry and begin insulting each other. After they finish their insults, they decide to make up and embrace. They briefly do some exercises and then do the tree, staggering around on one foot. While Vladimir and Estragon stagger about pitying themselves, Postso and Lucky enter. Postso is blind and runs into Lucky, who has stopped at the sight of Vladimir and Estragon. They fall, along with all the baggage. Vladimir welcomes their arrival since it will help to pass the time. Postso calls for help while Vladimir and Estragon discuss asking him for another bone. Vladimir decides that they should help him, but first he and Estragon discuss how they have kept their appointment. Postso continues to cry for help, and eventually Vladimir tries to assist him. However, he falls also while trying to pull up Postso. Estragon threatens to leave, but Vladimir begs him to help him up first, promising that they will leave together afterward. Estragon tries to help him up, but ends up falling as well. All four men now lie on the ground, and Vladimir and Estragon begin to nap. They are woken shortly by Postso's shouting, and Vladimir strikes Postso to make him stop. Postso crawls away, and Vladimir and Estragon call to him. He does not respond, and Estragon decides to try other names. He calls out Abel, and Postso responds by crying for help. He wonders if the other one is called Cain, but Postso responds to that name as well, and Estragon decides that he must be all of humanity. Vladimir and Estragon decide to get up, which they do with ease. They help Postso up and hold him, and Postso tells them that he does not recognize them since he is blind. They tell him that it is evening, and then begin to question him about the loss of his sight. He tells them that it came upon him all of a sudden and that he has no notion of time. Postso asks the men about his slave, and they tell him that Lucky seems to be sleeping. They send Estragon over to Lucky, and Estragon begins kicking Lucky. He hurts his foot and goes to sit down. Vladimir asks Postso if they met yesterday, but Postso does not remember. Postso prepares to leave, and Vladimir asks him to have Lucky sing or recite before they leave. However, Postso tells him that Lucky is dumb. They exit, and Vladimir sees them fall off stage. After Postso and Lucky leave, Vladimir wakes Estragon. Estragon is upset at being woken up, but Vladimir tells him that he was lonely. Estragon gets up, but his feet hurt, so he sits down again and tries to take off his boots. Meanwhile, Vladimir reflects upon the events of the day. Estragon dozes off again after unsuccessfully struggling with his boots. The boy enters and calls to Vladimir. Vladimir recognizes the routine and knows what the boy is going to say before he says it. They establish that the boy was not there yesterday, but that he has a message from Mr. Godot saying that he will not come this evening, but definitely tomorrow. Vladimir asks the boy what Mr. Godot does, and the boy replies that he does nothing. Vladimir asks the boy about his brother, and the boy tells him that his brother is sick. Vladimir asks if Mr. Godot has a beard and what color it is. The boy asks Vladimir what he should tell Mr. Godot, and Vladimir tells him that he should say that he saw him. The boy runs away as Vladimir springs toward him. The sun sets. Estragon wakes up, takes off his boots, and puts them down at the front of the stage. He approaches Vladimir and tells him that he wants to go. Vladimir tells him that they cannot go far away, because they have to come back tomorrow to wait for Godot. They discuss hanging themselves from the tree, but find that they do not have any rope. Estragon says that they can bring some tomorrow. Estragon tells Vladimir that he can't go on like this, and Vladimir tells him that they will hang themselves tomorrow, unless Godot comes. Vladimir tells Estragon to pull up his trousers, which have fallen down when he removed the cord holding them up in order to determine whether it would be suitable for hanging. They decide to go, but once again do not move as the curtain falls. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel.